The Caribbean Conquest of 2041, Part 2. Air raids over Haiti have skyrocketed fast. Cap-Haitien and Port-au-Prince have been heavily bombed by Caribbean forces. Unfortunately, Cap-Haitien falls to the Caribbean. But Port-au-Prince stood out fighting on its own. Bombing raids of Haitian airplanes was Cap-Haitien's surprising victory. And they return Cap-Haitien and slowly liberate Santiago, knocking out Caribbean forces, and Santo Domingo was liberated. San Pedro de Marquois, but this time, huge offensives have been taken. Port-au-Prince fell, and that meant the surrender of Haiti. Cuba has seen threats of the Caribbean and likely begins an offensive on the Caribbean islands. Quickly take out Cap-Haitien, La Vega, San Pedro de Marquois, Santo Domingo, and Port-au-Prince, which has now been liberated by Cubans, slowly coming in to Puerto Rico. But this time, the Caribbeans kept on battling from the small islands. There was a bit of an argument between Cuba and the Caribbean islands over Puerto Rico. But this time, huge offensives began on the Haitian Peninsula and Puerto Rico, and slowly invading Cuba as well. Heavy bombing raids have taken place in Cuba, slowly coming into Havana. Together with the Bahamas, they quickly take advantage of the Haitian Peninsula. Jamaica bombs San Juan, and the Bahamas takes on and liberates small islands like Guadeloupe, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados. But that was not going to let the Caribbean down, and quickly take back liberated land by the Bahamas, Cuba, and bombing Jamaica. Quickly take back Puerto Rico and the Haitian Peninsula, and invade the Bahamas. The Bahamas fight back of immediate victory. Nassau was liberated and took again power of the Haitian Peninsula, took again power of San Juan and the islands. Small islands are liberated again by the Bahamian forces. But the Caribbeans were smart enough to be fighting back from Barbados, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Guadeloupe, Dominica, and St. Kitts and Nevis were quickly back to be conquered. Bombing raids over Puerto Rico and the Haitian Peninsula began while they were invading Bahamian liberated land. Port-au-Prince fell again. Quickly they invaded Cuba to prevent Cuba from attacking. But Cuba was way stronger than the Caribbean forces and pushed them all back, liberating Cap-Haitien. But it was a huge chaos offensive. Attacking back from La Vega, Cap-Haitien and Port-au-Prince made the Cubans kind of worried. U.S. bombing raids over Caribbean land started, helping Cuba, the Bahamas, and whole America. Jamaica thought it was finally time to be liberating some of the lost land. Quickly take force and did a massive offensive. But the Caribbeans kept on fighting in Basse-Terre, Port-au-Prince, and Jamaica was strong enough. Fighting back from Spanish Town into Port-au-Prince, Cap-Haitien, Santiago, Santo Domingo, San Pedro de Marquas, and La Vega. But then, a huge offensive happened. Starting in Puerto Rico, La Vega was hit with raids of airplanes, bombing raids over Jamaica, but Cuba, fighting back from Santiago de Cuba, pushed the Caribbeans out of Cuba and into Cap-Haitien and Santiago. But a huge offensive began. Pushed the Cubans out of the peninsula, hit Jamaica with 50 air raids. Santiago de Cuba captured again, and pushing into Cuba at lightning speed. Santa Clara, Matanzas, Nueva Gerona, San Jose de las Lajas, Artemisia, Pinar del Rio. Literally, more than a half of mainland Cuba was captured. But, which surprised the Caribbean forces the most, was a huge offensive from the Cuban forces with no help needed, and quickly took back everything that it has lost. It was time the Caribbeans bombed the Cayman Islands, but Cayman forces did a revenge sign and started by invading the provinces of the Haitian Peninsula, surprise attacking the Caribbean forces, pushing them back to Puerto Rico, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua Barbuda, Martinique, Dominica, and many more islands. But then, the huge offensive of the others began, with Caribbean forces now forcing into Cayman territory and wrecking the liberated places. Bombing raids began of the allied countries. Jamaica was hit by heavy air raids and surrendered. Cuba was almost the same, but it was a surprise attack from the south. Havana fell, and Cuba surrendered. But many have evacuated to the small island of the Cayman Islands. But What surprises them the most was this. Caribbean forces actually entered North American mainland into Guatemala. Guatemala forces couldn't even believe it and started a huge offensive on the Caribbean forces and took back the province of Flores. Belize joined their country in fear of protection against the Caribbean forces. Honduras and El Salvador unified together with Nicaragua just in case of an invasion of the overpowered forces of the Caribbean. Costa Rica did the same, together with Panama, and created the Central American Union, just in case of an attack of the forces of the Caribbean. With the Cayman Islands, the last standing island in the Caribbean, together with the Bahamas itself. Let's find out what will happen next.